welcome to Kolkata.
Thank you.
I hope you're having a lovely time here. We are very happy to have you at the Kolkata Literature Festival.
So do I. It's not my first time in India, but first time professionally I'm here because I was 10 years ago with my daughter who speaks Hindi and she finished the Indian Studies University in Moscow. Now she doesn't work in this field. It's a pity for me. She produced films and all that stuff in media and lives in Barcelona. And there is no Berlin Wall anymore. The world is open. And we've been in Delhi and in the south, in Trivandrum and Kavalam. Have a trip by boats in the lakes or swamps or whatever. I don't know how to say it. You knew what I mean. I've been in the old Portuguese synagogue, and I've bought some fantastic artifacts in the market because I was archaeologist and I like very much the native uh, artifacts, and you have a lot of them.
Talking about the fact that you were into archaeology, you have been an archaeologist for a while, and that kind of showed with the book Citadel that you wrote. And congratulations on your booker for that.
Thank you.
So, my question for that, how did you come into such a unique subject like archaeology, and how did you come about into this work of a vocation of restoring old places and objects and construction sites, or like even monasteries all over Russia?
Very, very simple with mom's milk. My mother and father was an archaeologist, so I just prolonged their work, and my grandfather and ma was the historians of art. So I was involved in history since the first years of my life, and I've been with mom when I was a young boy in excavations, and after that in the historical museum they have expeditions, and I worked there as a worker, digger. And then I entered university and finished it, and I work in the eldest city in Russia, which is called New City. It happens so in history, not only in Russia, the same strange situation, because the new, it was called according to comparisons with the previous one. And archaeologists find the previous settlements, but a real city was this new city, which even we have now, Novgorod, in the north. And the main thing in this Novgorod, the main, the greatest thing that what they find, there are a lot of artifacts and wooden parts of some boats and houses and spoons and not spoons, but some artifacts. But the main thing was the birch tree letters, the letters of the simple Novgorodians who write just sometimes love letters, sometimes they asking for giving back debts, the quarrels. It is the voice of dead people, the simple people, which never ever you can find in archaeological expeditions. Sometimes there are parts written on ceramic, but it is the pieces. And here is more than 100 letters found nowadays. So this is the core of the people who died in the 20th century, in the 11th century, religious pieces of religious psalms, for example. Uh, well, not million, but thousand variants of. And for example, there is a complex of letters of little boy Anfim, who started learning grammar, and he, for example, write himself as a wild animal and inscribe "I'm an animal," and there was something like this, as boys do. He has 7 fingers because he couldn't count well, and it's very, very nice and very lovely letters from a little boy of the 20th century.
So, the Citadel, or how it's been translated yet, is the fortress. The story itself starts with the narrative, how archaeology has changed over the years, how the concepts and how there is a social change in archaeology itself. So, from that basis onwards, and you bring in this idea that in the novel itself, there are two citadels. One, the protagonist is trying to save from the corrupted restorers, and there is also the Citadel of Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah, so there are like two parallel narratives of two citadels
Yes.
going on at the
Yes.
same time. How was it like balancing it and making sure every narrative is heard? And how does reality work in conjugation with psyche in your writing?
Well, I don't know. The reader must answer your question, but I try them to be in balance because one story is the story of struggle of the real person nowadays lived and buried underground in the cave in the ancient church, which he uh, dreamed to find, but nobody can find it. But it helps, as in the novels and in the fairy tales, it happens. And he died there as a saint, winner who lose everything. And the other story was the story of the same of the person, the Mongolian, duke or noble person from the Chingizid family who escaped from Mongolia not to be killed by his relatives who wanted to be the first numbers in the family. And he appeared in Russia and struggled with Russia in the first big battle in Kulikovo Polе, where we are. And we're very proud that we win the battle. So it was the battle, but from the Mongolian side. Normally, we say, "What did the Russian troopers and troops?" And it was another way that gave me a lot of freedom to show that. And after that, here begins the odyssey of the this guy who lost his sovereign and became feudal without boss, lonely samurai, I should say, and he went to Samarkand, the Middle Asia capital, where at that time lived and ruled the next greatest warrior of that time after Chinggis, Timur. You know him because you have Mongols here, and
We have history.
yes,
Yeah.
we have the same in history, the same influences, and maybe it will be interesting for the Indian readers to read the story of this lonely samurai who start fighting for Timur in his troops as an officer, not the very high rank he had before, going down. And it is the story of the great war between Timur and the leader of the Mongols in Russia, and Timur win it. He always win his battles, and his main dream was to capture India because India was very rich at that time. Russia was not. He just went through the edge of the borders of Russia when he came back, just capture one city and don't want to look at even on this poor Russia. Thanks God, because Timur will destroy everything. and Vereshchagin, who's Russian painter, who's big painter painting you have now, and it will be or is exhibited in Kolkata. Painted this paints about Mongols too, and so we have
We have
some
history.
some common in history.
Very common in history because
Yeah.
Timur's, the descendants of Timur ended up being the Mughal emperors.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
he did.
yes.
Babur came.
Mughals,
Babur
yeah.
came in
Yeah, yeah.
1526.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we have common history with each
Yeah,
other
yeah.
for 5 centuries
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So the guy went out of this battle, and I made it so that he escaped to Russia, and he finished as a noble person in Russia, giving birth of the family. The end of this family, the last person in the family was this historian who write a book about his predecessors and so on. That's why how it circled,
Yeah.
how the circle finished. We have a lot of aristocrats who say we're Chingizid and we're Mongolian. And to say the truth, I even have 1 million part of Chingizid in my blood. It is normal, and if you know that Chingiz gave his DNK to a lot of people in the world, and I don't know whether it is, for example, for Muslims, they knew each person who connected with Muhammad. I don't think Mongolians have the same for
Sure.
Chingiz, but if you can find it's all over the world because he has a lot of sons. They lived in different places, even in India,
Yeah.
and give birth to a lot of sons who prolong this DNK all over the world.
So, in your novel Fish, you use this beautiful method of symbolism to use Vera, your main character, as an imprint of Russia. And so the thing is, in a narrative, while making sure your character, your protagonist, is a symbol of something bigger,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you need to flesh her out, make her as real as possible, and make her stand as an individual itself. How hard was that process? How hard was it to balance these two things?
It was very nice for me and very interesting to work not as a writer but as an actor because I speak her voice, the lady voice. And thanks God, my friends, ladies who was the first readers say they believe in this lady. It was very interesting to say the truth, and it's not very often we have several number of books which when the writer speak lady's voice, and really it is partly it is really Russia, but mostly the main thing because the book has the second name, the story of one migration, and we knew that fish migrate, yes, and fish migrate through the stream. It is the character, and my hero, she went through the stream. She tried to survive and survive in fantastic circumstances, nevertheless, and losing her relatives, her son from the narcomania and all that stuff. And there are a lot of stratas of understanding the book because it is the story of freedom and a story of losers who take drugs which eat the freedom of the brains for to the end, absolutely. And this is the problem of nowadays, number one. And I think the story of migration is the problem of the mankind. Because, for example, if you live in the village, you know that you have a goat and your neighbor has a goat, and you have the cattle, one cattle and another cattle. What would you do? You will change the he goats to clean the blood. If you don't do that, your cattle will die very soon. It's biologically understandable. The same situation was the God's idea with the people. People always migrate all the time. All the time, the has changed.
They're always in
Which,
motion.
yes, yes. Nowadays is modern and interesting. You can make a test and you will understand, for example, that you have island person and for example the African steps in the DNK is in DNK in your own. Who are them? These predecessors. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's
It's fantastic, and it showed us that only this um, special soup, which was made by I should say, the God's idea helped the mankind to survive.
You've been a radio presenter, you've been an archaeologist, you've been an author. You've balanced so many roles all through your life, but which one would be your favorite?
My favorite will be the role of the ashram person living in the wood, well, finding food from the nature and relaxing in greens, never think about the terrible noises and voices of the civilization nowadays,
Away
which,
from the cacophony.
yes, cacophony, yes, but it never will happen. I have a lot of escaped in my life. I'm a traveler, a hunter, and the mushroom eater, and so on and so forth. But you couldn't stay all your life there because you have family. Nowadays, thanks God, I have even little kids. I am a grandfather 3 months ago, and I'm waiting for another one. I think he will come soon, I think, or she. And I must earn a living. I'm pensioner, but you could live for pension in Russia at all. But people do that. I can't. Only internet and cigarettes and all that. And medicine will eat my pension to the end. That's why I'm working, and maybe I'll have a possibility to work more on radio. Dealings with the first show is about modern books, and another one we have a show speaking with science about modern science and what they are doing. And I think it's very needable, I should say, for people because there are a lot of uh, nowadays on internet myths about science, and you can read about the third eye, about moon man or whatever you know. So people must understand that only real science open new doors, and when a scientific person open a door, he understands there are 10 closed which open each time, and this is the story which has no end, or the end will be with the end of the earth and mankind.
Thank you so much for having us in this lovely conversation with you, Peter. I'm very glad to speak with you. I hope you have a wonderful time at Kolkata Literature Festival,
Yeah.
and I hope you get lots of books in the book fair.